The bloody truth about Easter. The story you were never supposed to hear. What if everything you thought you knew about Easter is a lie? Welcome to a journey into the hidden past. In this video, we uncover the true origins of Easter. A story filled with mythology, occult rituals, pagan fertility festivals, sex rituals, blood sacrifices, and religious deception. We tear down the veil of deception and show how a celebration full of violence and idolatry hides today under the guise of a holy Christian holiday. The truth will shock you. If you feel this truth needs to reach more people, like this video now and share it. Easter, as it is celebrated today with colorful eggs, cute bunnies, church services, has little to do with the Bible. Instead, it is deeply rooted in ancient, pagan rites, in which children were sacrificed, sexual excesses were celebrated, and demonic fertility cults were worshipped. From the goddess Ishtar in ancient Babylon, to Astarte and Ostara, to Baal and Moloch, all over the ancient world, dark, bloody rituals were held in spring. And although the names have changed, the essence of these practices lives on in today's Easter customs, disguised, but not gone. In this video you will learn how ancient cultures wanted to evoke life through death in spring, how sex, blood, and death became sacred acts, how Christianity simply adopted pagan customs instead of banning them, why Easter customs still carry powerful occult symbols, and why it is high time to open our eyes and see the truth. Ready to question your reality? Then join me on a dark journey through mythology, religion, and power, and experience the bloody truth about Easter. Now the revelation begins. Ishtar, Inanna, and the origins of the bloody spring festivals. Long before anyone knew the name Jesus, people gathered in the fertile valleys of Mesopotamia for cruel and ecstatic spring rituals. At the center of these rituals was a figure whose power was both seductive and destructive. Ishtar, the Babylonian goddess of love, war, fertility, and death. Ishtar was not a goddess of tenderness. She was the queen of heaven and the underworld, the mistress of life and death. Her legends tell of cruel acts of revenge, of seductive seductions and bloody wars. She promised people fertility and blessings, but only if they were willing to pay with blood. In spring, when nature awoke after winter, Ishtar demanded her tributes, sacred prostitution in the temples, where priestesses and priests imitated the cycle of nature in ecstatic sex. Blood sacrifices to unleash the power of new life. Some sources mention cruel rituals, in which innocent children were sacrificed to secure the goddess's favor. Her most famous myth, Ishtar's descent into the underworld, is a symbol of death and rebirth. Ishtar dies, is sacrificed, and finally returns triumphantly to life. Does that sound familiar? Yes, the story of a divine figure who dies and rises again, long before Christianity. And this is where the perfect fusion begins. Spring, death, rebirth. The basic themes of Ishtar's cult were adopted centuries later by new religions and repackaged. But the origins are dark, bloody, and deeply occult. Ishtar's altars were drenched with the blood of sacrifices. Her temples were places of debauchery and excess. And this energy lives on, masked, to this day. When you paint an egg or give a bunny as a gift on Easter, Your act does not honor the resurrection of Christ, but the ancient goddess who stood for blood and lust. The truth is older than any church, and darker than you think. From Astarte to Ostara, how fertility goddesses ruled the world. While Ishtar was worshipped in the East, her cult spread throughout the world in many other names and forms. Whether under the name Astarte, Asherah, Anat, Venus, Aphrodite, Diana or Ostara, the message was the same everywhere. Sexuality, fertility, blood and power. Astarte, the Phoenician version of Ishtar, was worshipped as the Queen of Heaven. Temple prostitution was an integral part of her cult. Men and women sold themselves sexually to buy the goddess's favor for the community. The altars were sprinkled with blood, and often it was innocent children who served as the ultimate sacrifice. In the Old Testament, we find sharp warnings. And Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins which they committed, above all that their fathers had done. For they also built them high places, and images, and groves on every high hill, and under every green tree. 1 Kings 14:22-23. Asherah, the Canaanite tree goddess, was also worshipped in the spring through sexual excesses and blood sacrifices, a ritual cycle intended to guarantee fertility. And then in ancient Europe, Ostara or Eostre appears. The Germanic spring goddess whose symbols were the egg and the hare, both clear signs of unbridled reproductive power. In her honor, the Teutons celebrated wild festivals that heralded the return of the sun and the fertility of the earth. The egg, as a symbol of new life, was painted red, often, historians suspect, with real blood from sacrificial animals, or even humans. The hare, an animal of lewdness and restless reproduction, stood for the irrepressible wild energy of spring. The same pattern is repeated worldwide. In Egypt, Isis, the magical mother goddess. In Greece, Demeter, mistress of grain and fertility. In Rome, Cybele, whose priests castrated themselves to serve their goddess. Everywhere they sacrificed blood. Everywhere they celebrated with sex. Everywhere they worshipped the dark power of spring. And these ancient goddesses, they did not disappear. They changed their names. Their festivals were renamed. But their dark heartbeat has remained. Today we call it Easter. But when you look deeper, you see the ancient grimace of the fertility demons who still demand their sacrifice. The world has only changed its mask, the darkness beneath remained the same. The cult of Baal and Moloch, bloody sacrifices for fertility and power. If you think the stories of sacred prostitution and fertility festivals were the worst, then you don't know the darkest deities of antiquity, Baal and Moloch. They didn't just celebrate here, they murdered. Baal, the storm and fertility god of the Canaanites, demanded bloody rituals. In spring, the time of new beginnings, infants and young children were sacrificed in burning altars to secure the favor of the gods. Archaeologists have found remains of mass graves filled with tiny bones, charred black from ritual fires. The Bible itself warns emphatically against these practices. They have built also the high places of Baal, to burn their sons with fire for burnt offerings unto Baal, which I commanded not, nor spake it, neither came it into my mind. Jeremiah 19:5. Moloch, often depicted as a giant, bronze statue with outstretched arms, was even more gruesome. It was heated from within with fire until the arms glowed, then the sacrifices, living children, were placed inside. The screams of the victims were drowned out by drums and flutes, so that the cries would not reach the mothers present who had offered their children. Why? Because they believed, only through the shed blood would the earth become fertile. Only through pain and sacrifice could power be attained. Fertility through death, power through suffering. These were not barbaric fringe groups, they were entire nations, kings and priests who supported these cults. And always the same time, spring. Nature flourished on the ruins of innocent lives. Now think for a moment. Why does modern Easter hide its symbols behind bunnies and eggs? Why do we celebrate life at the very time when our ancestors paid with blood? The shadow of Baal and Moloch has never disappeared. It has only taken on new masks, softer colors, friendlier symbols. But behind the facade, the old demon is still dancing. And the world, it dances with it. What do you think about this revelation? Write me your opinion in the comments below, and show the world that we will no longer be silenced about the truth. Deception and transformation. How Christianity hid the pagan rituals. When Christianity began to spread, it faced a problem. How do you convince a world accustomed to idols, goddesses, sex rituals and blood sacrifices for millennia? The answer was simple and devilishly clever. They did not forbid the old customs, they renamed them. The early church leaders knew that they would not reach the people if they brutally suppressed their sacred festivals. Instead, they integrated the pagan spring festivals into the new faith. The wild celebration in honor of Ostara, Ishtar or Astarte simply became the feast of the resurrection. And the symbols? They were not eliminated. The egg, an ancient symbol of fertility and new life, became the Easter egg, a symbol of the resurrection of Jesus. The hare, once consecrated to the goddess Ostara, was retained. Only now it supposedly brings eggs. The spring festivals with dancing, drinking, and carnal pleasures became cheerful Easter customs. A wicked masquerade. Even the date of Easter, which is based on the first full moon after the spring equinox, comes directly from the pagan lunar calendars. It was not faith that determined the date, but the ancient cosmic cycles that were already sacred to Ishtar and Baal. And Jesus? His death and resurrection were placed on this time frame to fulfill the ancient human need for death and rebirth in the spring. What looks like divine revelation is in truth a clever political maneuver. Christianity swallowed up the old religions and carried their shadows within itself. Today, millions of people think they are celebrating true life at Easter. In reality, they are dancing, often unknowingly, on the ancient, blood-soaked altar of the pagan fertility gods. The truth. It was not faith that defeated paganism. Paganism took over faith and put it at its service. The hidden danger. Why Easter customs are still dangerous today. Many people think, so what? A few colorful eggs, a cute bunny, a family celebration, it's harmless. But that is precisely the biggest deception. Symbols are never harmless. Symbols carry power, they bind energy. And when millions of people reenact the same old pagan rituals every year, even unknowingly, then an ancient power is unleashed anew. The egg remains the symbol of fertility magic. The hare remains the animal of untamed, wild sexuality. The feast of the resurrection remains at its core, the ancient feast of goddesses, of sacrifices, of blood. And this is precisely where the hidden danger lies. Through our ignorance, we are feeding the same dark forces that once sent the cries of children into the heavens and soaked altars with blood. Easter is not a pure celebration. It is an infected ritual whose roots lie in the darkest chapters of human history. Every colorfully painted egg, every joyful bunny dance is, consciously or unconsciously, a tribute to ancient fertility demons. And the more we celebrate these customs, the more we reinforce these occult energies. The truth is brutal. What is sold as a Christian holiday is in truth a pagan legacy full of blood, sex, and death, masked with cotton candy and holiday greetings. And as long as we celebrate these festivals unreflectively, we keep the dark structures of the past alive. It is time to wake up. It is time to recognize the lies, to tear off the masks and bring to light the dark truth about Easter. For whoever does not know the roots will be ruled by them. If you no longer want to hide the truth, then like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for even more revelations about the dark history behind our seemingly harmless customs.